I can, yeah, give me just a second.
Thank you.
And Councilman Waring, I may have to jump off early to get onto that DRB meeting.
Yeah, well, we don't worry. We won't charge you a fine this time, but
Okay.
next time.
All right.
Anybody had the feeling from St. Andrews PSD people on that? Peter, did you get a feel from St. Andrews Parks and Playground on that item?
Yeah, Keith, Councilman Shade and I both, met with them on Friday, and they certainly have some concerns, and I hope they will, hope they'll address those concerns, maybe at the DRB meeting and maybe at our meeting tomorrow. But they're very, very concerned about what's happening there.
Yeah, are they for it or are they against it or what?
They're very concerned about the hazards that it could present to kids that are drawn there and the traffic, and they've had people hit along Playground Road, and they've done a good job of making where there's just one cross point over there to get to their fields, and they're very, very concerned on a lot of different factors, but mainly as a safety factor for the kids there, and that may potentially draw a kid to go buy a candy bar and a Coke over there and get hit by a car. So they've got some real concerns.
Councilmember Waring, I just sent it to your city email.
No, don't send it my city email.
Oh.
Send it to the K Waring.
Oh, sorry about that.
I just sent it to your email, Councilman Waring.
Oh,
Looking for it, but anyway.
you should have just gotten it from Vanessa, and we are live on YouTube.
That's okay.
Go ahead and start recording if that's okay with you.
That's fine. I'm waiting for cyberspace.
When I go in and change the meeting order, it's more important that you sign off on coverages.
Can they try sending it again, Brittany? I still haven't gotten it.
You're going to get billed for the prorated amount for the new vehicle. That'll have to be paid.
I just sent it. I believe Vanessa said she sent it as well.
You just got it. Thank you. Thank you, ladies. All right. I'll call a meeting to order. Now I'll ask Councilman Shea to bring a few words or a moment of silence, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Almighty Father, look favorably upon your servants who are assembled here today to do the will of the city of Charleston and citizens in this community. We ask that all that we do be pleasing to you. In your name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you. I thought I'd try to do purpose and waited on this thing to download. Okay, got it. Move for, I need a motion to approve the minutes of May 24th.
Move for approval.
Second.
Any questions on those minutes? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. We're down to item E, acceptance and dedication of rights away, Mr. O'Brien.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Mr. Mayor, members of the committee. The first three items we have are our letters we're sending to SCDOT for maintenance responsibility exceptions. The first one is for a project at 102 President Street, and that is dealing with some sidewalks, some granite curb, and some street lights. The second one is a project at 194 Cannon Street, which is the hotel, and that deals with granite curb and some, also some sidewalk along Spring, Vaughn, and Cannon Streets. The third one is a handicap ramp and some curbing dealing with the Simmons Art Center at the College of Charleston.
What's the pleasure of the committee?
Oh, I'll move for approval.
I'll second.
Probably moved and second. Any more discussion on those rights of way? Councilman Appel and then Councilman Griffin, in that order.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to highlight items number 5, 6, and 7 here. These are stormwater easements in the old Windermere neighborhood across the street from the South Windermere Shopping Center over in my district. And this is the part of old Windermere that butts up against the Crescent. And there's been this ditch that's between those two neighborhoods since the 20s and the 30s when these neighborhoods were first laid out. And everybody has assumed over the years, oh, this is a city drainage ditch, but it's always been private property. And right after getting into office, I heard from the folks over in the Crescent, they were dealing with some stormwater issues. And I got a tremendous education from Matt and Benji and Chip regarding stormwater easements, how they work, the fact that we need them in order for us to, do work out there, use public funds. Otherwise, we're using public funds on private property, which is, of course, illegal. And we have worked relentlessly over the past 18 months or so to get to the point that we're at today. The homeowners that are implicated here have worked with us. They've agreed to grant the city these easements gratis, which is, of course, the way we do this. And this is the first time we will have established City of Charleston public stormwater infrastructure in 2 of the oldest neighborhoods in West Ashley. And it's just a tremendous event. And it's something that is part of a more consistent, comprehensive effort to, get stormwater moving better in those neighborhoods. But this is what we have to do in some of our older neighborhoods to actually get stormwater under control and take it out of the, maybe somebody did something out there 20 years ago, but nothing's been done since. This is how we get it into a regular maintenance routine. And this is how we actually start retrofitting some of these old neighborhoods to actually have a functioning public stormwater system. So this is may seem boring to a lot of people out there, but this is really great work. And I want to thank Matt and Benji and Chip for all their hard work and for putting up with my incessant nagging via email and whatnot. But of course, the big credit goes out to these homeowners that participated in this with the city. And they're really doing not just themselves a tremendous benefit, but their neighbors upstream that are going to be benefiting from this as well. And it takes buy-in from everybody to make this happen. So I'm very excited about this, and this hopefully can be a model for what we can do elsewhere around the city. So thanks again to everybody.
That's great. Listen, I know what you're talking about when it comes to getting a ditch, something simple as a ditch, officially recognized so we can go in there and maintain it. Our engineering department built a new ditch, if you will, and it took almost 2 years, Mr. Mayor, to get the rights of way over in Ardmore to drain. And that ditch has kept people housing. A new ditch has kept people from drain water going into their homes. So it's a big victory for you, Councilman Shaid, myself, Councilman Shealy. I don't know, Councilman Griffin, if you represent some of the older areas, but anybody that represents these older areas where infrastructure for stormwater wasn't recognized in the 70s and 80s, maybe in some cases 60s, it's a beast trying to solve those things. Councilman Griffin.
I've got the Pierpont area, and there's some
That's right. There you go.
similar things going on in there. I'm going to just wait and talk. I just want to commend DOT for some things, but I'll wait until we get down to the Church Creek discussion a little further down the line.
Okay, great. Well, that brings us down to
Mr. Mayor has his hand up.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Mr. Chairman.
Was there somebody else? Okay. So thank you, Mr. Chairman. I did want to point out and ask, it just occurred to me to ask Tom and our legal staff to kind of look into something. This is one of Councilmember Shade's favorite topics, the fact that we often accept this maintenance responsibility from the SCDOT. And often I'm told because the granite curbing is not one of their accepted, materials, that we have to accept maintenance on that. But a handicap ramp on number 3, and what clicked in my mind was that someone mentioned to me that now that the DOT passed their complete streets policy, that some of the things that they disallowed in the past, that maybe they will accept now for maintenance. So, and I certainly wonder whether a handicap ramp might be one of those things, but to check on that specifically, but also to ask our legal team, I see a couple of them here on the line, if there are some additional things that are a result of the SCDOT complete streets policy that we could avoid having to accept some of these maintenance responsibilities in the future.
Yes, sir. We'll be glad to get with legal and work on that. I question these every time when I get these requests from the engineers on these projects. I call Julie and Mike Black and say, we've had some in the past where they've asked us, we're basically building, having a sidewalk built for them and on DOT right away. We're requesting that and getting infrastructure built for them. And, we've pushed back. Why should we have to maintain what is a standard material? And they pushed back in the past. But I think with the complete streets, that's a great idea. And I'll get with Julie and get with Chip or Julia. We'll do another discussion going on that, sir.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Chairman, also on those drainage easements, we need a motion. We didn't get a motion on those.
That's what I thought. In other words, we did the first 3, I think.
Yes, sir.
We have to twist Councilman's appelled arm to put a motion forward on those drainage.
So moved. Thank you.
You including all of them, right? In that motion?
Oh, 5, 6, and 7.
All right.
Or I guess 4 too.
We got good. Second. We've already had a discussion on it, so hearing none. All in favor of that motion, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Temporary encroachments, Mr. O'Brien, anything special that sticks out?
No, sir. We've got some right angle signs, some fences, and some irrigation, but nothing out of the ordinary. And they've all been inspected and approved for the signs through zoning. So we would pass that on information that we're recommending for approval of those.
All right, thank you. That's for information.
Yes, sir.
Stormwater Management Department updates. Mr. Fountain, number 1, National Resources Defense Council survey.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So the first item is basically just a point of notice for the community members that the National Resource Defense Council is going to do a survey of basically participants within the FEMA buyout process for having your home purchased and demolished. They're looking to get opinions from people on how that process works so they can kind of continue lobbying with FEMA to change that process to make it more efficient. So one of the areas they're doing that work is in Charleston because we've had a number of buyouts. There's no funding or anything from the city. It's just more notification in case a resident calls and asks what's going on. It's an independent group, just trying to get some opinions. They protect everyone's data and keep it confidential. They just want to come back with information for basically discussing with FEMA of how to improve that process, because it does take quite a long time the way it's currently set up between going through the applications to getting the award to going through funding and then eventual acquisition and demolition.
Okay. Any questions, Mr. Fountain, on that? Oh, Mr. Mayor.
Would the purpose be, would they be in a position with good information to really have impact on FEMA's programs to try to speed it up and try to make it more efficient? If that's the case, that would be a good thing.
Yeah, that's exactly right, Mayor. That's what they're trying for. Is they're a pretty strong, aggressive federal lobbying group, and think that they can really make some impact on encouraging FEMA to look at different ways to go through the process, whether it's having upfront agreements and thresholds in place where you could basically trigger a acquisition being fundable rather than having to go back through the application process. They have a few different ideas. but they feel they need to get real world data in order to support their arguments with FEMA. And I think they have some good ideas in that vein.
Give them my number.
Mine too.
Thank you.
Okay, item H2, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So this is we had previously gotten approval to apply. This is now the approval to accept one of these FEMA grants, similar to what we're talking about in item 1, an FMA grant award through SCDNR for acquisition and demolition of 2 residential flood damaged properties. We would receive $536,284.17 of federal funding, with the city providing match of $30,754.83 from the drainage fund. This is 2 properties. One is in the Shadamoss area, one is in the East Oak Forest area. And these are, of course, once the grant, if we do choose to accept the award, the residents then will have the option to continue, the property owners will have the option to continue with the program and be bought out and have their properties demolished, similar to what we've done on other properties.
I'll move for approval.
Second.
Properly moved and seconded. Any discussion on those? Councilman Griffin.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is just another example of our city working with outside resources to make these things happen. No, the city's not paying for all of this, but we have a game plan now. We've been doing it for several years. We keep getting grants year after year. So we're putting good properties in the pipeline. And I think this is a win-win for everybody. If you've seen the designs for some of the new stormwater components to these properties, returning them to green space and making them, not only an opportunity for some natural, stormwater, but also something our community can be proud of. They're going to look nice. They're going to have a nature aspect. They're going to have a nice exercise aspect. People can enjoy it. Nobody that lives in a house who bought next to a house wants to then wake up one morning and see that the property next to them is a dog park or a playground. They want to see something more natural that may entice people to come visit, but can also have a really great stormwater purpose. So some of these designs and these retrofits have really, really impressed me. And I look forward to seeing how we can continue to tie these new buyouts in, if that's what the property owner wants to do. Thank you.
Okay, all in favor, any more discussion? All in favor of item H2, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
Thank you. Item H3, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So H3 is a recommendation to award a construction contract for the drainage outfall improvement maintenance project. It's actually 2 separate outfalls, one at Devonshire Drive and one at Burns Downs, to the low bidder, which was ES Integrated, for $290,932.60. Funding is allocated from this year's stormwater small project allocation.
Mr. Fountain, can you tell us a little bit more about the work that's going to be done?
I can, yes. So these are, let me try screen share really quick, Mr. Chairman. So Devonshire, this is a roughly, zoom in a little bit for you. Roughly 600-foot long outfall here to reach out into kind of the existing more functional creek system. It'll come all the way through this blue line down to the base point here. This one went through a very extensive Army Corps of Engineer permitting process because of the level of reconstruction involved, and basically will help this this section of the neighborhood here drain back out properly after all the accretion that's occurred through the area. The Burns Downs outfall is probably one that people are a little bit more familiar with. This is the outfall coming here. Sorry, the resolution's a little poorer on this one, but basically this is the school at the edge of Windermere here. The greenway coming through. You can see the outfall is kind of done the same thing. It actually continues further south. There's a CWS utility line crossing. We had previously gone in by hand and removed a lot of debris that had accumulated from the above grade crossing, which significantly helped with much of the flooding that's experienced in this neighborhood. Littleton and the area around it especially. This process is to now remove some of that accumulated sediment within that channel that was basically accreted when the trees and other items blocked the flow in that channel. That slows the water down and more debris basically accumulates within the channel itself. So these are both hydro excavation, which is the kind of the most environmentally sensitive approach that's the most favored by the permitting agencies. And they're both neighborhood scale drainage improvements because both these neighborhoods kind of drain through single outfalls.
Okay. All right, that's great. Any questions on behalf of committee members? Entertain a motion, please.
I'll move to approve.
Second.
Probably moved and seconded. Any discussion on the motion? Here, Councilman Appel.
I'll be real quick, I promise. This is another measure in my district, and just want to thank Matt and the mayor and everybody else that helped, and of course everybody on this committee. We approved these projects earlier in the year, and what we learned was that the price for actually doing this work was going to be a little bit more expensive due to some factors outside of our control. So I would hope that everybody would join me in supporting this. These are, as Matt mentioned, neighborhood-wide basin improvements, right? This is not going to help a house, 2 houses, 3 houses. This is going to help dozens, if not more, houses, both in Burns Downs and in the Farm Field neighborhood. And this is good maintenance practice. I mean, Burns Downs, for example, has a very modern stormwater system that was put in about 15 years ago. And, this is important for us to do to maintain that investment, because if the outfall is backed up, the system that we paid so much money for is not going to function properly. And over in Devonshire, as Matt indicated, work on this has been going on for years. I mean, Councilman Moody got this effort underway and was very instrumental in helping to line up some, Army Corps and OCRM permitting, and that work has been going on for years. So, without this funding to actually do the work, all that effort would have been for naught. So these are 2 very important projects. I would really encourage everybody to support it. And the last thing I'll say, and this is maybe for another discussion, as the city gets more and more infrastructure lined up, it may be more beneficial from a cost perspective for the city to actually get some of its own hydro excavation equipment. So we don't have to go to the market for these contracts. We can actually do the work ourselves and actually get this work done more frequently, not just in my district, of course, but everywhere. Because when these outfalls are working, it's a game changer. And I've already noticed measurable, results just in, a year and a half or so, where we've been doing some great work alongside Senator Sen and others, getting some of the red tape cleared out to do this work. So very happy that we're here, and would humbly request everybody's support here. Thanks so much.
I would classify that as a short discussion, Councilman Brookfield, but that's all right.
Sorry, I'm done for the rest of the meeting.
Oh, no. Listen, the part that's so cost effective out of all of these projects mentioned, all of them are gravity flow projects. And you can't fix a drainage problem more cost effective when you improve gravity flow. So call for the question. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Thank you. Now we're down to item 4.
Item 4.
Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So item 4 is recommended award for another construction project for a low bidder for the Coral Reef Drive Drainage Improvement Project. This is IPW Construction Group LLC for $58,579. And this is another one of the small project allocation projects. And I can pull this one up if you'd like as well, Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, do it quickly. Yeah, that's good.
Okay.
We're half hour.
This one is a little bit more of the traditional projects that we've looked at. So this is Coral Reef Drive, Johns Island. And there's basically an existing drainage easement that comes through the neighborhood. Unfortunately, the neighborhood had a series of cypress trees that were planted in the area, which generally are a good thing in low-lying wet areas because they pull up a lot of water. But cypress trees, as you're all probably aware, the root system form what they call knees, the kind of roots that grow up above the ground. So the knees basically have blocked up much of the drainage in the drainage ditches and created standing water and other issues in the neighborhood. So we're basically going through and removing some trees and installing an under drain based system instead of a concrete pipe system through that easement and then into the outfall that's over here to clean up the drainage issues. So this is the award for the low bidder for that project work. We've done a similar project, not with the cypress knees so much, but a similar approach. Actually, this is the same thing we did recently in Councilman Griffin's district for the rear yard drainage issues and one of the long neighborhood streets, just like this, where you're serving kind of multiple properties with it.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Fountain, for the explanation. We have a motion.
Move for approval.
So moved.
Second.
And second, Mr. Fountain, do we have to get special permission to move the cypress tree, or is that in the same category as the donkey?
They're not large enough to hit grand tree issues. So as long as they're under that 24-inch diameter, for stormwater work, we don't need to go into any kind of special permissions.
All right, great. All right, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Now we're down to the discussion on Church Creek maintenance requested by Councilman Griffin.
And Mr. Chairman, I'm going to sign off so I can go ahead and join that design review board meeting.
All right, good. Represent well.
All right. Thank you also. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just want to highlight some of the efforts that Matt has made out of my district in the last few weeks. I want to just also highlight South Carolina Department of Transportation. And I also want to highlight Charleston County. I won't take up too much of y'all's time, but basically I've had a lot of maintenance requests lately. And it's been over the last few weeks, I've gotten probably 3 or 4 dozen, all in the same area. And so I got with Matt and we got with Golf Wheels, which is Shadow Moss Golf Course, is owned by an LLC. And we met out there near Beast Ferry Road, and we walked a couple of properties. We looked at a ditch that is actually probably in the county, but has, it affects all of our constituents. And I noticed that a lot of these requests I'm getting are from these multi-jurisdictional ditches that maybe a part of it is in the city, a part of it's the responsibility of the golf course. And we're still trying to work through all of that. But just on a positive note, so we went out there that day with Golf Wheels, and we kind of came up with a game plan. I called DOT, and they're going to come out there in a couple of days and start clearing off the side that runs along Beast Ferry Road first. They're going to look down into one of our culverts and see how clogged up it is and see what they can do there. The Golf Wheels is going to come in from the backside and spray and try to kill some of that vegetation. We may be able to come in and do a little bit to help out too. And I think that's what's it's going to take out there in my district, and especially in a lot of these ditches out there in Church Creek, is we've got so many people that have to be involved. We all have to have a little bit of skin in it. And so that was just one example of all 3 of us stepping up and saying, hey, look, we'll help. Another example is we went out to Hickory Hill last week and walked there's a huge ditch that actually serves Hickory Hill, which is a pretty big neighborhood, Hickory Farms, which is another pretty big neighborhood, and Shadow Moss, all 3 of us. And this is actually the ditch that ties back up into Beast Ferry Road, in that long ditch that runs all the way in front of those neighborhoods and ties back in to the Church Creek Basin under the CSX railroad tracks. And we went out there and met with some of the homeowners, and it was Charleston County, Wes Linker, he came out there, and then Matt sent 3 or 4 guys from Stormwater. And we started talking, and these guys told me, these are residents, they said about 10 years ago, the city teamed up with the county and took some John boats in there and actually cleaned that whole ditch out. It took about a week. And I'm still trying to do some more research on exactly how that happened, because it's something I've never even heard of. John boats. Maybe you remember this, Mr. Mayor. I think it was before even your time that Mayor Riley supposedly teamed up with Charleston County, and they sent John boats in there to actually kill some of that debris and get it out of there. Because I tell you guys, with all of the, we've been very blessed these last 4 years not to have any major storms, but we have significant debris that's fallen down into these ditches, and there's really no way for us to get them. I mean, we can't send a backhoe in there. I mean, we would literally have to get into that body of water to remove that. I don't know how expensive that would be, but that would be something that I would hope we could look at, because it serves thousands of homeowners. I mean, it's one ditch that literally serves 3 major neighborhoods that all drain into one. And if we could find a way to clean out at least, I don't know if you guys have been out there to Beast Ferry Road and you've looked into that ditch that runs along Hickory Hill and Hickory Farms. It's looking pretty bad too. I know we've had some pretty bad weather over these last few weeks, and I hope before hurricane season, before it gets too bad, and usually in the middle of September, we're due for at least one storm that looks like it's coming to us. I hope we can get out there and try to service that area one more time and hit the big thoroughfares at least before the weather gets too bad. So I just wanted to highlight all of the good work our departments have done. Anytime people out there in outer West Ashley, anytime you see a stormwater truck, they love it. It's impressive because for years it seemed like we never saw those trucks. But we do see them quite regularly now. And I've got to say, I appreciate the leadership from Matt, and I just hope we can try to get out there and knock out some of those big thoroughfares at least one more time before we have another significant rain event. Thank you for your time, but I just want to say thanks.
Mr. Mayor.
So, Councilmember, just so I'm clear, is that running alongside Beach Ferry Road or the one that I would call like the extension of Church Creek that runs literally parallel to Doncaster Drive heading away from Beach Ferry Road? So
the ditch that runs alongside, parallel to Beast Ferry, it actually, I think the ditch that you're talking about on Doncaster actually drains into that. And then it goes down the road and to the railroad tracks. So that ditch along Doncaster, if you look, that ditch runs along the very outer perimeter of Hickory Hill. It runs through one side of Hickory Farms, which is if you're looking at Hickory Hill, it's to the left. And then the right side of that same ditch is all of Middleborough, which is Shadow Moss, the newest Shadow Moss entrance. So that one ditch is basically swallows up Hickory Hill, and then on the outer perimeter, Hickory Farms and Shadow Moss. So it's a very, very big ditch, and it's really deep over there on that Doncaster side. I mean, the water's probably up to your chest. I didn't get in and swim around because I heard there's alligators, but I hear it's pretty deep. Compared to over on the Shadow Moss side, it's a little bit more shallow and it doesn't fill up quite as much, so we're able to get in there a lot more. Look, you even got some visuals here.
So I remember, and I think it might have been before Matt came on board, actually going down in the ditch. We had guys from city and county with chainsaws, and I do believe they were working partly out of a boat and then partly out of just climbing down on each side. And, all that vegetation can just grow back, but they cleaned that thing out, quite well. I guess it was 4 or 5 years ago. And it just gets back to that question of continued maintenance of all these ditches to the extent we can. And Matt, of course, is working on that, as you note, so well, but it's we've been playing catch up on it. But thank you.
Do you happen to remember what was that, a mutual aid contract or something between the city and the county, or do you?
No, I think we just called them and partnered up, both decided it was a good idea and had crews. But the day I was there, it was mostly city folks, if I remember correctly, our own crews.
Well, thank you for that. We met out there with the city and the county, and we looked at it again, and it seems like we're all on the right page. As much as hear it, it's always good to go out there and look at it every once in a while. And
Absolutely.
I think that going out there and checking it out and really seeing some of those trees down in there, it makes you think, okay, how can we attack this? Because it's a very unique situation back there. You can see on this map here, look at all of these houses that are serviced by these big ditches. So just wanted to bring it up and really thank Matt, because he's on top of everything. He meets me out there almost every week, it seems. I feel like I'm running him ragged, but he's doing one heck of a job, and I know our future's bright as long as he's with us.
All right. And we had an update on brick arch repairs. Mr. Fountain. Number one, thank you, Councilman. Excuse me, Mr. Fountain. I did recognize you, but thanks, Councilman Griffin, for spreading the goodwill on that. I tell you, anytime we see those people show up in any of our districts, we're thankful. Now, Mr. Fountain.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This one is just basically a chance for discussion. If there's any questions, we do have a significant bids and purchases emergency repair item for that Cummings Street sinkhole that everyone is probably familiar with. It received quite a bit of news coverage. So it was an extensive repair. We basically found an underground cistern, one of the brick cisterns. It's underneath the arch in that location. So we had to stabilize both the roughly 15-foot diameter cistern in addition to the arch itself, which led to why the street was closed for about a month, and as a result, a much higher repair bill than usual. But the upside is that we were able to get all of that stabilized, cleaned up. College Charleston was great with helping with some of the traffic control and keeping the area safe. And luckily we were in summer, so it wasn't quite as much of a disruption to the city, but we do have it stabilized and reopened. But it was a repair bill, and you'll see it on council for bids and purchases, about $335,000. So just wanted to make sure that everyone is aware of what it was and why it was so expensive. And if there were any questions, I could answer about it.
Yeah, I see Councilman Griffin's hand.
Yeah, I'm just wondering where we are compared to a normal year in terms of how much we've allocated for the brick arch repairs.
So we have an annual allocation that's set aside for basically emergency brick arch repairs. We're still within that budget. We do tend to get pretty close to it each year. This year, we happen to be doing very well before this repair. So, fingers crossed that as we get through hurricane season, which is where sometimes we'll see some worsening. We had quite a bit of worsening previously. We had that snowstorm that really froze the ground and caused some serious issues downtown in some previous years. But so far, we're okay from a budgetary perspective. It does bring up why we're trying to restabilize and convert these arches into improvements, because when you're spending at least $500,000 a year on emergency repair work, you generally would be better off with proactive work. It's just trying to find the upfront money is always the challenge. So
it seemed like it had been awfully quiet the last few months. So I just, you're quiet for a few months and you have expensive one.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The only other one we really had was that Calhoun Street one, which was very visible, but we got done very quickly and had it reopened, and it wasn't exorbitantly expensive. It was more what we usually see of the $50,000 type repairs.
Do we have anything going, Mr. Mayor?
So I just want to share a couple of thoughts. I stopped by a couple of times while that repair was going on. And of course, when I first went there and you look down about 10 feet in this big hole and you're just seeing the top of the tunnel, the archway, it's pretty amazing, number one, just that this whole system exists. But then when I went down to the next manhole and I was actually able with a light to see down to the bottom of that thing, this is where the cistern was. Man, that thing was big. and it can hold a lot of water in addition to being, part of the tunnel system. I'd be amazed to find out, I think we all would, how many of those cisterns are part of the system as well. But to reiterate what Matt is saying about money well spent, and I know it's a lot of money, but we should keep at repairing those archway tunnels and adding them to our capacity to transport and hold, store water. I was thinking back also about one of the recommendations of the Dutch dialogues was to put storage under the streets. And you think about, gee, that's an expensive proposition to do. We already got it under the streets. We just need to clean it up and reinforce it so that it, is more functional. And once again, the cost of trying to do it proactively rather than coming back and doing these repairs is money so much better spent. So I know we put aside, what was it, 500,000 this year, Matt, for the new work of cleaning and reinforcing?
So the new work is a allocation out of the 2012 stormwater bonds. There's a total allocation of 1.8 million in that, which we spend at about 500,000 per year per vendor with the IDC contracts.
Right.
Well, that's where the work that's going on in the Limehouse project, where we're up through Trad Street at this point. We will likely spend somewhere around $750,000 to $800,000 on that this year, and then next year again, and get up to that 1.8 million just after that.
Right. So of course, we're going to see hopefully some proof in the pudding when we get all the way up Cumming Street from Trad and connect those dots. And but I've been told kind of subjectively that the drainage is better along Limehouse Street since we've completed that work. So if you get up to Cumming and Wentworth, where, if you all know, when we get a heavy afternoon shower or even a mini rain bomb, you have that whole intersection flooded, and also down at Bufane and Cumming. If we get up that far and that intersection doesn't flood anymore like it has been with the 2 or 3 inch rain, I'm telling you, that'll be proof of the pudding that what we're doing is money just extremely well spent.
Listen, I couldn't agree with you more, Mr. Mayor. I believe it or not, Bob George, who was on council well before any of us, or myself, before you, any of us.
I remember
I was a very smart engineer. He would say, he spoke about this system underneath the city and being utilized for stormwater. And it didn't really fall on willing ears. So I'm so happy that, that's an asset that, suppose we had to go on and bore those things today. What would it cost me? We know what it does to bore these tunnels for, all these shafts, if you will, for, September Carg Spring Fish Pond. Suppose we had to do this all over again as opposed to repair. Now, we need to go get a big block of money to repair them. But great job. Councilman Appel, did I see your hand? You're on mute.
No, sir. I've used up all my words for today's meeting.
All right. But listen, I do have one thing that I thought was going to be on the agenda, Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, Councilman, I was going to say that the item you had, we did get it added onto the council agenda for the report out of the public works utilities.
Okay.
But it didn't get added to the actual public works utilities agenda. So it is on there for the council report out, but not on there for this agenda. As 2 different people put the 2 different packages together. So I apologize, but we do
no
have
problem with
it
that. Well, can you just give, I guess, apprise the remainder of committee members? It deals with the Glen McConnell expansion project and hopefully some culverts being put underneath, coordinating that with the county. Mr. Fountain.
Yeah, absolutely. So Councilman Ware and Mr. Chairman's been referring to a project we've been looking at basically ever since the Weston and Sampson report for the Church Creek Basin, looking at how could you provide some flood relief to the Lake Dotterer, particularly by reconnecting historic drainage that was basically separated when the Glen McConnell Parkway was built and bringing that water south through Long Branch Creek, basically out to a different option. And what happens is the Church Creek watershed, as we all know, there's so much water that's coming south and it stages up for so long in that area that basically the water currently comes over the top of the spillway into Lake Dotterer from Church Creek, and the water can't get out of Lake Dotterer because it's blocked on the south by Glen McConnell and it's blocked on the north by Church Creek. So we get flooding basically in the residents that surround that lake, which is quite a large number of homes with the shape of the lake. So one of the options we've looked at, and we've had Weston Sampson do quite a bit of modeling over the last year and a half on this, is basically raising the elevation of the dam, let's call it, on the north of Lake Dotterer to block the water from Church Creek from coming in, and then divert the water instead south under Glen McConnell and into Long Branch Creek. So that works very well from a hydraulic standpoint because the water level is much lower in Long Branch. Long Branch also has its own flooding concern, so it involves having additional downstream improvements, which is the challenge for the long-term project, that it's a pretty significant long-term project. But we do have an opportunity to build the first part of the project now, as the county is looking at what is about to go to bid on widening Glen McConnell Parkway and adding a multi-use path. So while they're doing that project, they're going to work with what would be called like a construction, like an add-alt and add-alternate, where there's an item in the bid where the county can choose to ask the contractor to install those pipes under Glen McConnell. And basically the county is looking at contributing some funding depending on how their budget works out with construction on the project. And then we'll see with that option how much the total cost of the project would be to see what the county can contribute versus what the final cost is. That would allow us to get those pipes under the road so that as we make the downstream improvements, we'd already have the pipes installed to basically improve flooding on Lake Dotterer and actually on Long Branch Creek. And then we had to run quite a bit of modeling to verify that nothing we do would cause a negative impact to Church Creek, because we also want to avoid that with any improvement that we do. So the mechanism by bringing that water south, but blocking from the north, protects the Church Creek residents from seeing any negative impact from the project while having benefits in Lake Dotterer and in Long Branch Creek.
You know, I never understood, and this wasn't that long ago in terms of history, Mr. Mayor. I never understood how they could fill in Glen McConnell. I mean, this wasn't done 50 years ago. It should have been culverts when Glen McConnell was built. So anyway, but glad to get this done. But one way or the other, this is something that's got to be done. I mean, while you'll never have a chance, come back and do it after this road expansion project. The cost would be prohibitive. But anyway, and I know, Mr. Mayor, you and Matt and team have set up a joint meeting with our folk and the county folks. So hopefully we'll get a good compromise on that.
Yep, we hope so. I don't know when it's been set up or if it's been set up yet, but it'll be soon.
But thanks for working towards that because it matters. Any final thoughts to come before the commission or the meeting? With that,
Matt, if you can give me a call some point this evening when you get a chance for about 5 minutes.
Sure, yeah, I can do that.
Thank you, buddy.
Thank you, Bethany, for getting me that agenda.
Absolutely.
And hey, by acclamation, we stand adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you.
See y'all tomorrow.
All right.
Thanks, y'all.
Bye-bye.